Welcome, friends. This is going to be a hell of an episode because, man, we're talking about all kinds of things. We got episode 273 for you of Color of Magic, your Magic Gaming podcast, where we talk about all types of things that affect gamers at and away from their gaming tables and computers. I'm your host, PowrDragn, and still going to get through another wild week here with my main man, Brian Sonic. How's it going, dude?
I'm hoping we can get through an hour without a couple more games and getting killed off or any more studios getting laid off, because it's hide your kids, hide your wives, hide your games. They
Bruh,
be murdering everybody out here.
it's a rough time for game studios right now, for real. We got so much stuff going on. Like, not even talking about like world events, like just in our sphere of gaming, there's a bunch of stuff right now.
Right.
But yeah, if you want to support the show, remember you can go to Patreon. It's patreon.com/color of magic. We really appreciate your support. Man, I can't even talk right now. I've been streaming all morning. But yeah, you can get a shout out as well, just like Luke Galbraith. So thank you, Luke, for being a supporter on our Patreon. But man, that brings us to our lead story here, and I decided we were going to talk about this because Aetherdrift's right around the corner from dropping for everybody. Streamer events, you probably watched those yesterday by the time you've watched or listened to this. But this is the first. I think this is like the accumulation of doing all of these like weird world Magic sets. I think this is the first one where people kind of went like, which is funny because I will say the last couple people seem to have like had a love-hate relationship with, and I think on this one people are just kind of like a general malaise of like, I like the cards, but I don't know. Like the theme feels a little weird, and
Yeah.
like they're just not like that's the most common complaint I'm seeing. If you want to call it a complaint, like I said, they aren't saying they hate it. It's more just like
Oh, I'm hearing people hate it.
I'm not seeing so much hate as much as people are saying like I'm just not feeling it. Like I don't mind the cards, but it's just not connecting, right? And I feel like the last few sets, whether we're talking about like Dustmorn or Bloomburrow or even Thunder Junction, like there was some amount of people that were into it, right? Like
And to me,
this hit just right.
Bloomburrow's not all that weird. It's just there are no humans. But we've
Sure.
always had rat tribes or groups of people. We've always had different goblins, but I think the thing about Bloomburrow is zero zero humans, really.
But again, right? The love-hate, right? Some people loved it, some people hate it. But at least there was people that were outright loving it or outright hating it. It's weird to just have the set that so many people are I don't know, race cars and the theme and I really think this might be a place where we've just pushed too hard too often, right? Because I'm all for taking a shot. Don't get me wrong. I think just the way you find out things, that's the way you bring new people in. Just like you mix and match and you try some things. But I thought about it, right? We had the Murder Mystery set in Karlov Manor. We had Thunder Junction, which was the Western stuff. Then we had Bloomburrow. Then we had Dustmorn. Now we've got Aetherdrift. And it's like, maybe we didn't need to do them all at once. Right? Like, let's break that up a little bit. Give us some other normal stuff. And then we'll slide one of those in there and see how you feel about it. But, I mean, the next one, at least we have Tarkir coming, right? Which will be just magic, dragons, whatever. So you kind of get back to
that's the other thing,
thing.
because we get Universe and Beyond. If you're not interested in that, you're really only getting 3 traditional Magic sets a year, which makes it's even more culture shock when like you said, it's Aetherdrift and Duskmorn and just different things.
And I will say this too about the Aetherdrift set is almost like, I don't know if they were fully aware that could be an issue, but even when streaming some of it, I was like, okay, there's some dinosaurs in here that work with the dinosaur decks. Like, why the dinosaurs exist in the racing set? Hell if I know, because people aren't riding them, but whatever. At least if people were riding the dinosaurs, I'd be like, I get it. But this is more like, all right, we need you to still enjoy this. So we're going to throw a bone to your theme dinosaur deck or whatever, right? Or your theme artifact set or whatever it is. So I get it. Like, you put enough in there to give people interest and they'll want to buy it and the cards are good. All right, fine.
And actually, Game Rant had a piece up of this talking about max speed. That just feels like that's party all over again. When are we going to use max speed again? Probably never, unless we go back to Aetherdrift in another couple of years, which, again, if nobody ends up liking this, that's not going to happen. Max speed just feels like it could be just dead on arrival as a mechanic.
Bro, I still have problems with Party because we didn't put it in the D&D set.
Yeah,
Damn it.
that.
Like
I spent that entire set brewing party decks and like, hey, we're gonna get D&D and they'll be this way. If I can make it work without the support that I'm gonna get later, it's gonna be great. Then later I get no support and
that's the
parties
time
just
I still wish I was at Wizard so I could just like, guys, look, it's the D&D set. It needs to have the party mechanic. Even if it's not a lot of it. Like, oh, that to me still feels like the biggest miss.
I mean, how there are people there surely when they like you said they design these things 2-3 years ahead. Surely somebody when they put party in was it Zendikar?
Yeah, I think that's what one of the Zendikar sets.
Yeah, how do you? I think we all assumed it's coming in the D&D set because parties. That's literally how. Just
It just
so
happened the way it happened.
and yeah, again, max speed feels like this is going to be so abandoned. I just can't imagine. I guess maybe you could possibly put it in the Marvel set if you're doing Quicksilver. I don't know how many speedsters they're going to do, but probably not very many because not very many people have that as a power.
Yeah, yeah.
I just don't know where else the max speed would fit.
I've always felt that way throughout the history of Magic, right? Is that when you have, I think I first noticed it way back in the early Kamigawa sets. They had an ability that was called Splice onto Arcane. So there was a group of spells that had the arcane type that like you could cast a spell with it or whatever, but like you literally can't use it with anything else.
Yeah.
It's just from, and I've never liked that. So, and to your point, I think when you're doing a lot of these sets, with these unique themes, one after another, you do end up with a lot of mechanics that you can't use elsewhere unless
Yeah,
you're
because
just
you can't.
shoehorning them in, right?
Exactly. If we can bring this back to let's say Thunder Junction, I guess you could put max speed on horses. Maybe
Yeah,
I don't
exactly. It's
know.
not a thing, right? Or, we talked about crimes, but like it was only a thing in Thunder Junction. We haven't really even referenced it any other time,
Right.
which is
I
like,
was wondering that, and then I saw it as a front page story on Game Rant. So clearly, lots of other people are
mm-hmm.
really wondering what's going to happen with max speed. And shout out to Game Rant. I didn't know they were doing that much Magic coverage, but yeah, they started. I guess that shows you just how.
How big it's gotten.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's part of the issue, right? We've just pushed a lot at one time. And I think that people are even I think though some people maybe not even been able to vocalize what they like or don't like properly. It might just be that like it's just been okay, here's a lot, right? And eventually you just get that feeling of just like, let's just get some normalcy, after a
Yeah,
point.
it just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like magic, really.
Mhm.
It feels like magic with cowboy hats or magic with race cars.
And I'm okay with that as long as it's
I
not
didn't
all you have, right?
as I said, I had no problem with that in Bloomborough because again, it's just animals. We've had all sorts of animals for pretty much Magic's entirety, so that one was
But
that one was
again, you
fine
still
with me.
had people that hate it because we went too cute, and that's not the theme for Magic, right? And then we had people that liked
They've had rabbit warriors before, haven't they? And they have that just always a little bit cute. The matter
oh,
what the
there, don't get me
artwork
wrong,
is.
I'm with you. There's always something, but people didn't like that, right? And then when we did Dustborn, some of the people that loved Bloomborough and even started playing Magic because of it went, I don't know, horror
That I can
stuff,
see
not really
because
my thing.
it's such a huge tonal shift
Yeah,
in between the two. And I think when let's say you're playing a card game for the first time, like, okay, let's say Yu Gi Oh!, you're going to assume that, hey, yeah, we got dragons every time. We have, I'm trying to think of some other,
yeah, yeah.
the same characters each time, in theory. And then to go from the rabbits to 80s horror tropes, which already was, as you mentioned, a kind of bizarre thing to have and what's in theory a high fantasy card game. It's just a little bit different.
And for me, I'm okay. Like I said, take the shot, do it. I just don't think we needed 5 in a row, right? I think that's my issue when I'm looking at it. It's saying, I get it. It's a lot. When you're because you're shifting constantly from one thing to the next to the next to the next, and it's just like you need to just back it up a little bit. So I
And
think that
especially when you got us used to having 3 set blocks of okay, we're in Eldraine, we're gonna be in Eldraine for the next 3 sets. So if something comes out, either lore wise or mechanic wise that you like, you can feel reasonably sure you'll see it again in the next two
well, bro,
sets.
that's for us old heads, right? We ain't even had blocks for hell, pre-pandemic, we were already out of doing blocks, really. Right? Like I think we got that little one with the 2 sets with Innistrad or whatever,
Yeah.
with the wedding and whatever. And that was kind of it. We ain't really been doing blocks in a bit.
And to me, that's kind of what you've lost. And as I've been beating the drum on lore, even if you don't like the storyline, don't care about the storyline, having story beats to hit helps you stay on
Sure.
course in just terms of keeping some things the same. Where, hey, what's happening here? Who are we trying to defeat? How are we trying to defeat them?
You know,
Who died last set?
you know what the corollary is here? I just thought about it. This is like when Marvel got done with Endgame,
Yeah.
and they were like, okay, we know we got to take a new story, go another direction, and we're just going to try all these things, right? We're going to introduce all these characters, we're going to go all these different places, we're going to do all these things, and then like and same thing when we saw Marvel, it was too much for people, right? Like hell, they even got rid of the people who were like, hey, we got to have a new show every week or every 2 or 3 weeks after the other one ends, we pop up another one, right? And they're restructuring how they even handle all that. And
I
I
could
think the
fix
same thing
I
happened.
could fix Marvel in one sentence. If they can't carry a comic book, they can't carry a movie. Before you make a movie, does this character currently have a comic
I
book on the
mean,
shelves?
I almost agree with that, but we do have some outliers like Guardians
Yeah,
of the Galaxy and stuff. Like,
certainly.
but I
Guardians of the
get what you're saying.
Galaxy and
But I get
Ant
what you're
Man
saying.
would be outliers. But for every Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant Man, how many Eternals have we had?
To be honest, though,
Nobody.
like we do also have the issue of they now have back all the stuff that was under Sony and Fox and whatever, right?
That's
So
also true. Is they were trying to just kind of fill, which even with that, there were other things you could which they do seem like they're kind of doing West Coast Avengers now,
sure.
but the Inhumans,
But I mean, think
no
about it.
one,
Now you got access to all the mutant stuff now, so you could
yeah,
rewrite or include more things in the stories than you could do before.
they tried to make the Inhumans a thing, and for the most part, nobody has ever cared about
To
the
be fair
Inhumans.
though, like the Inhumans they had, that was it was bad, man.
Even
It,
even if it had been the best Inhuman show ever, tell me your favorite run on a Black Bolt comic. You
but dude,
ain't got
hey, I
one.
would have said the same thing about Guardians though, and then they made me like Guardians of the Galaxy. So
That's true, but as we said,
you know what I mean?
outliers.
Yeah,
They
there's
didn't
ways you could do it, but if you looked even at the cast and the production on Inhumans, it didn't even feel good. You know what I mean? Like I just and I was watching all the stuff that I was watching, all the stuff with like Agent Coulson or whatever, Agents
yeah.
of Shield. I was watching all that, and then as soon as the Inhumans popped up, it was like, what's happening? Why are we doing this? Like, this doesn't even barely fit.
Yeah.
We're just
It
shoehorning
just
stuff in there.
they just went a little wild.
But that's the vibe I'm getting now. I'm thinking about it. It feels very similar. Of just, hey, you don't need a barrage with so much. Just stick to the core. Throw me in there every once in a while. Give me something a little new, a little different. Keep me on my toes, and we're probably okay.
Like, good lord, stop figure out something to do with Universal and actually start making Incredible Hulk movies, as opposed to
Also, that.
stealing. Although somebody I saw was like, "Hey, why are all these Hulk villains in the Captain America movie?" Like, they've used all Captain America's villains.
Yeah,
It's
there's
just
not a lot.
sad, but
Same
yeah.
thing with Iron Man. It was fine that he wrapped it up because he ain't got nobody either. Like a
Iron
bunch,
Man's true villain is Iron Man.
bruh. We had to
Tony
watch
Stark is
whatever's
his
name,
own.
Whiplash or whatever.
Yeah,
Like like, dude, there ain't a good selection to work with. Like, they needed Spider-Man back in the X-Men so you could get real villains to make movies about because they ain't got nothing. But yeah, to this end, to wrap this up, I think that is part of the problem, though. It's just you also have the issue that these are designed 2 and 3 years in advance, right? So I think once you make that plan, okay, we're going to do all these different sets all at once or whatever, you can't really change it, right? In the middle of it, everything's already printed, posters are made, artists are paid for, whatever. So you kind of got to just ride it out. Now, again, fortunately, they made sure we have Tarkir coming, so we have
yeah.
that to look forward to, and that's awesome. But I think this is kind of a result of that, right? If you're going to take those shots, they need to be spread out because if they don't work or they don't hit the way you want, you can't really backtrack or change things. Because people always ask that, like, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they include this in the set? And it's like, dude, there's a point where there's a point of no return, right? You've already paid for everything, all the art's assigned, you've already done all the editing. Hell, even at the factory, Like files are already sent. Stuff is lined up to be printed. Like you can't undo that, unfortunately, unless you just want to lose a crap ton, literally millions of dollars, right?
And that's why I've said with Universe Beyond, we need to be prioritizing things that actually fit, like Lord of the Rings. It's
Yeah. And
the,
I don't even mind what
it,
we have coming, truthfully. I think Final Fantasy to me is like somewhat close enough that
there
like,
definitely is magic in the Final
yeah, and
Fantasy
I'm
universe,
like
so
I'm
some
all
of
right
that.
with it. And then the other one just being the one we're just gonna take a shot on and it's Marvel, Spider-Man stuff. Like, okay, fine. I
And as
think
I
if it would have
said, I hope at some point they really lean into the more mystical aspects of the Marvel universe with Doctor Strange and Dormammu,
I think
etc.
eventually you'll see that. I mean, because there is like some subgroups you can do some stuff with that I think would be pretty good. But I also get that if you're gonna pay
Marvel
for,
Zombies is already a
yeah,
thing, and zombies are obviously a magic creature that's
I
been
think that's a
around
secret
for.
layer that's gonna be coming down the road. But I'm with you. I think they did take a shot with Spider-Man though because it's the safe one. I
Well,
think if you're just
exactly.
like,
If you're
I'm
gonna
gonna
do Marvel, Spider Man's what you want to do.
exactly. I'm paying a lot for a license. Let me go with the biggest thing that we know people like. That the movies have been big recently. Let's take advantage of it, right? And actually, isn't there another Spider-Man movie lined up later in the year,
I don't know this
or is it next
year.
year?
It may
It
be
might be
next
next
year.
year. I don't remember, but that could be part of it as well because we know they've also done a lot of that where secret layer thing, and then some plus or minus a couple months, the other thing comes out.
And then speaking of Secret Layers, the arcade one, I'm assuming they just asked Nintendo and Nintendo said no. Is what I'm assuming happened there.
I assume you at least take a shot.
Yeah, you
You
gotta
know,
take a shot. And if Nintendo says no, you either I guess talk to Crash Bandicoot or you just don't do it. Probably.
I would have went with Twisted Metal if you couldn't get anything. I think that would have been perfect for a secret
That's
layer for
another
this.
good one.
Yeah,
But
that would
they
have been the one for me.
like did they I would love to know if they asked, but
I'll
it's
never know.
weird.
You know, like I would think they would have,
Well,
but
I mean, but I think Twisted Metal isn't really the same as Mario Kart. Twisted Metal's much
no.
darker, much,
Sure. But
really
I mean,
not
for secret
arcadey.
layer, I'm okay with you taking a chance for it, right?
Yeah. And to me, if
Yeah,
you don't get one of those things, then just abandon the project. But they're still putting out a weird kart racer thing with no license of any kind.
I was looking at upcoming things for Marvel. Looks like I guess they just launched Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man thing on Disney Plus. I forgot about that, but
Yeah,
otherwise, it looks like Captain America, which is soon. We're gonna do the new Daredevil season. Thunderbolts. There's Ironheart, which actually looks like it might be pretty sweet, but that's not until
yeah.
June. And then Fantastic Four in July. Oh, there's a lot of stuff actually coming out this year at the box office. And then an animated Wakanda show or something in
I did
August.
hear something about that.
Yeah. And then Marvel Zombies in October, which is
And then
perfectly
they're
fitting.
doing I guess 1943. I want to say it's like Rise of Hydra, and based on the story where Captain
Yeah.
America
Yeah.
and Black Panther's grandfather team up because he's the Black Panther of his era, and they're going and fighting Nazis. So yeah, where do I sign for that?
So yeah, there will be a lot of Marvel things, and this will fall right in the middle of all that. So right in the midsummer where all that stuff's hitting, which they'll probably get cross promotion on some things or whatever. So it all makes
Yep.
sense. But yeah, I think fortunately we're kind of at there will be like one more of these. I think there's like a spacey themed one or whatever, but at least it gets broken up and we're kind of going to break the chain here. But yeah, it feels like it was a lot at once in hindsight. I think we were okay for a minute. It was just like, all right, we found the breaking point. 5 sets in a row, too many. Right? Like 5 with a weird theme, a little bit much. I think that's 3 realistically is probably the limit. I think we tolerated it at 4 because we got that Bloomborough bump in there. That was kind of all right.
Yeah, and as I said, Bloomborough to
Yeah.
me really fits. It just took the humans out, and or it didn't even technically take them out. Well, I guess you depend on who you how you the
Yeah.
planeswalkers were
Yeah.
there.
I
They
get what
just
you're
turned into
saying.
animals. But
Yeah.
from a character standpoint, but I get how some people are like, okay, yeah, I'm out on that.
All right. Let's get into the soapbox because we have a couple of things that are a bit silly. And man, I read this announcement. I wanted to be exasperated on behalf of a big mega company, and you should never feel that way.
Great.
But man, you know what? If anybody from EA is listening, legitly, I would be willing to come in and help you put together press releases, be your PR person. Hell, I'd do it for half the salary of whoever you're paying now because it ain't worth it, whatever you're paying them. Like, I genuinely feel that way because it feels like for the last, at least since Thanksgiving, everything we've heard from EA has either just been a mess or bad news. I mean, seriously. And then they put out this statement, basically saying they're working on Apex Legends 2.0, I guess, if that's what we're going to call it. Some new version of which, first off, by the way, Apex Legends already struggling.
Yes.
So, like,
It's down bad right now.
so what's your plan to be like, oh, we're going to make this new version and have all these extra things with extra cost and whatever, and this will
It
get
said
people interested.
it worked for Overwatch. Oh wait, it actually didn't.
It absolutely didn't. It's like, again, you have an example. Like, you literally looked at Overwatch and went, oh, yeah, they did a version 2 and they dropped all these promises and changed the game modes, whatever, and everybody loved that. No, they didn't. They hated it, actually. So why? Why would you do that? And then on top of that, they're trying to be low key, like not really being able to promise that all your skins and stuff will transfer to the new version. And it's like, okay, so you have a much smaller audience than you had at your peak. Hell, probably 20% of what you had at your peak.
Right.
And you're trying to keep these people while roping new people in, but you're going to make it harder for them to enjoy all the things that they have acquired being part of your audience.
And it used to be such a huge success story. I mean, Titanfall, didn't work out. So they quickly pivoted to battle royals because battle royals were
Yeah.
becoming the hot new thing. Gave us a battle royal in the Titanfall universe, and I mean, for several years, it worked really well. Lately, it's just suffering from, as you call, too much EAism, and then battle royals, or if you're not Fortnite, you're probably struggling right now.
Hell, even if you're a first person shooter thing, there's only a handful of those even doing well right now, it seems like. Like, what would even, I don't even understand the thought. Honestly, even if you're working on it, I wouldn't have made an announcement about it. Like right now, after you just said, like, oh, we didn't make that much money from our soccer game and we're gonna have to move expectations on our reports and blah. And then less than a week later, you're like, oh yeah, by the way, the few of you that really love our game, we're about to be changing it. Sorry. Like that's, dude,
It's
what?
they've gotten away with this stuff with sports gamers for years because you have Madden and you have FC 25.
Yeah, like
Although,
NBA, whatever, right? Like,
well, NBA is
well, yeah, that's on
2K.
2K now. You don't even
Yeah,
have that.
they
Yeah,
weren't able to get an NBA game. And how sad is that, by the way, that EA Sports can't figure out how to make a basketball game? That's just
yeah.
bad, bad, bad. But that's where we are. That's part of where their struggle is. They had an established basketball franchise that everybody loved, and it just dove off a cliff.
Yeah, it's just tough, man. I was like, how do you get into this situation? Like, seriously, where none of the news you have is ever good. Like, I say that. Their good news was Madden and the college football. Right? Like that
Yeah.
that was their good news. Everything else feels like it's been kind of bad for them.
When you have, I think, the second biggest selling game of the year in college football 25, and you still don't hit your numbers, still you got problems.
Yeah, that you're right. That's a
Like
good
you
way to
have
look at it.
the bucket of money that Madden NFL always generates, and you still are missing every number for your quarter.
And here's the crazy thing about the whole Apex Legends stuff going down. It's like, one, you have a new competitor in the market that's killing it. Marvel Rivals has everybody playing. Hell, I haven't even played first person shooters in forever, and I caught myself watching somebody going like, you know what, I might just download that this weekend. You know what I mean? Like, ooh,
Oh,
Cloak
it's
and
really well
Dagger.
done.
That
Yeah.
looks kind of like a cool mechanic, like being able to change
Right?
between characters. You know what, I might. Like, so obviously it's good, right? Even to the point that with Overwatch, the other, we'll call it the number 2 effectively in that genre, whatever, they've even made big and recognized like, hey, we got to make some major changes, right? We have this cool announcement coming. We're going to add these things. We're going to add these new skins, these new characters. We're going to do maps, all this stuff. If they're doing that, what makes you think that your plan is going to work?
Because you're EA. It's just the thing. They've done so many of these dumb things and still managed to become a multi-billion-dollar corporation. So
Like, you're not going to make enough changes to bring in the features that the number 1 game now has, right? You're not going to be Marvel Rivals.
Well, I wouldn't even know that I would call it the same genre because Battle Royale
That's fair.
and
That's
First Person
fair. They're
Shooter
a
are
bit
like
different.
two. They're it's even worse than you think it is because their network
Well, of
competitor
course.
is Fortnite.
That's
Fortnite is
fair.
who's eating their
That's
lunch.
fair. But you're not even going to get close to that right now. Like Fortnite is far and away leaders. Like I don't even like there's technically number 2s and 3s, but they are so distant compared to Fortnite.
Yeah,
Like it's crazy. Like and Fortnite just went the other way and said, "You know what? We're just opening the floodgates. You're a cool license, get your ass in here."
right.
Right? Like you got an audience, we want to be part of it. Get us 3, 4 characters, we're getting them in here. Hell, I knew, I guess it was like 4 or 5 years ago when they did the Bianca Belair and whatever skins, I was like, they're just whatever. If you got an
Yeah,
audience, we want you.
exactly.
Like Fortnite knew exactly what they were doing.
It's the game from Ready Player One. It's the Oasis, essentially.
Yep. So yeah, I don't know, man. EA, lots of issues right now. Nothing seems to be going right. None of their announcements hit well with anybody. Literally, if they're not reporting on football games right now, seems like it ain't good. And their plan is literally, let's do more live service stuff. Like that's going to be the solution to help our game. More live service. Like live service games are dying left and right.
Yeah, they're not seeing the stack of bodies out behind the Warner Brothers building, which we'll get into later.
Yeah, it's just like, dude, we're starting to see more successes that don't have crazy amounts of live service.
Exactly.
Like the industry is changing. Hell, I was reading something even on Reddit just earlier today where some dudes were talking about, man, you know what? I just only play first one single player games anymore. And I'm so much happier. Right? I download my games, I play them for a month, and I'm good. And I'm like, you know what? I get that sentiment.
Great.
Like totally. So yeah, I don't know. Like just go be a Baldur's Gate 3, man. Just go put the work in and then just let it
You make it sound so easy. Just make Baldur's Gate 3.
No, I'm not
That's
saying
the
it's
thing.
easy, but I mean, focus on the one thing you're trying to do. Don't put all this time and like, oh, we'll make it up on the back end or we'll have this DLC or whatever. Just I honestly I think the market's changing and a lot of the companies aren't prepared for it or built for it.
Also
Honestly.
true.
I think that's the biggest thing. But all right, let's talk about your news because it's also disappointing.
Yeah, Dr. Disrespect's YouTube channel has kind of sort as quietly as you can do anything regarding Dr. Disrespect has been remonetized, which is wild because if there's a case in which you can just break ties with somebody and not and in theory have nobody question you, Dr. Disrespect should be the prime example. For anybody that doesn't know, he has admitted to in legalese inappropriate texting with an underage girl, whatever that even means. It was enough for Twitch to say, no, thank you. We don't need you around here anymore.
Oh, let's not even talk about all his stunts like going in and filming somebody in the bathroom and like all the other crap that went on. Like the dude has a
Yeah.
laundry list of things.
Yeah. But most of that is, hey, it's PewDiePie level, Jake Paul going to a suicide forest. These are things we can, or was it Logan Paul? Which Paul went to the suicide
Yeah,
forest? I
it
forget.
was Logan Paul. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, we're used to those kind of shenanigans. Messing around with underage kids that's where
Sure.
people go,
Sure.
okay, yeah, you know what? We're cutting ties. But as time has gone on, climate has changed. People, at least a few people may have forgotten or didn't know, YouTube is just all of a sudden remonetize his content so you can start getting paid on YouTube again. What the?
Yeah.
Just
The only thing I can think of is something happened behind the scenes legally. And then they said, okay, fine. But hell if I know, man. Maybe somebody just went, you know what? You're going to make us a lot of money. People forgot you did all the junk. Let's see what happens. You're not in
that's
jail or locked
probably
up over it.
yeah, exactly. That's
Fine
what I
by
feel
us.
like is also. I think they didn't think he'd find another job, and then Rumble has become a thing where people like Dr. Disrespect and Russell Brand go after cancellation, and he's doing decent numbers over there. So I think YouTube is, in addition to, they're not doing this out of any moral obligation.
No, no,
They're
no, no, no.
they're doing this because hey, it may in the short term be costing them money, and also if they can get him to stop streaming on Rumble, it helps kneecap
See, to me,
Rumble because I
that's
think
the
he's
bigger issue. I don't think that it's costing them money, but it's like if you can just make it even harder for any competitors to climb up, That's the
Yeah.
business angle, right? All right. Well, if you're one of the, let's say, 10 big stars, and I say that lightly over there, then like, cool, I'm just going to take one of them and let them make more money on YouTube, right? Because we know that you're still going to make more money on YouTube than being on Rumble, but if that's the only place you can be, then you just go there and make your money, right? They
And in
all
this,
definitely want to be back on YouTube.
yeah, in this case, he'll get to do both. So it's
Yeah.
best of both worlds for him. And I think YouTube is going to hopefully that they think maybe couldn't. I don't even know how he doesn't have to leave Rumble. Maybe they're thinking they can convince him that he'll make enough money on
Well,
YouTube to.
my other thing too is my understanding is they're not going to be doing too many more exclusive contracts. I think we've reached the point that the big streaming platforms have realized like having exclusivity doesn't matter that much because they paid dumb money. I mean,
Yeah,
you still had Ninja or whatever that at one point got, I think it was 30 million from Microsoft's failed
yeah.
streaming thing, and then got another 20 million from like Twitch or whatever to be exclusive right after that one closed. So yeah. I'm trying to remember who I was
And
watching.
according to Twitch, still not profitable. So
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons. Um, there was, I wish I remember who it was, but one of the other big streamers that also has a YouTube channel, he was saying like he's at the end basically of one of the big exclusive contracts and he's not expecting them to do another one. Even though he's making money, they just realize like you're better off with everybody just multi-streaming and doing stuff and bringing in audiences and
yeah,
whatever. It just doesn't matter to pay them or not. Like
they've
YouTube,
turned it. They've turned into movie studios where Will
yeah,
Ferrell can make a movie for Universal, then the next movie can be for Amazon.
yeah, you
I
might.
think that's movie stars is more what being a streamer is like. Than
Well, yeah,
they're
you can
not
still
football players,
sign deals to do multiple projects with
Yeah,
somebody, but you're not prevented from doing a project for somebody else, right? And I think that's the world we're in.
I
And
think
it,
all the streaming companies for a while wanted to turn them into football players where you play for this
yeah,
team.
yeah.
You play for YouTube and realize no, they're not football players, meaning they're more like actors or comedians,
Well,
but they're
and we've
singers.
also reached the point of you having one of those people isn't going to bury the other person,
That
right?
too.
Like we've seen that as well. Like somehow Twitch saying they're unprofitable, still being around 20 years or whatever, like just keep trucking and doing your thing, whatever. And like YouTube's YouTube at this point. Like we all know
Yeah,
you make the most money on YouTube for most people, unless you're like one of the top, 5%, 2% of streamers or whatever on Twitch or whatever.
yeah.
So, it's not worth it. But if you need them to do some special video stuff or you need them to work on a promotion or whatever, sure, you pay them, for those projects, but not really
There
worth it.
again, from an entertainment standpoint, there will be some things will work better on Twitch in the way
Absolutely.
there are some shows that are better done in live theater as opposed to being on a sitcom or on a movie. And because in comparison to TV or movies, these industries are still in their infancy, we are
Oh,
all
yeah,
still trying to figure out which projects those are.
for sure. All right. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and talk about what we learned because there's two very disappointing things here. We're just the bearers of bad news, man. I think that's what this week is. So, why don't you tell them what you got?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about live service games piling up at a lot of publishers, and Multiversus, kind of Warner Brothers' answer to Smash Bros, has announced that season 5 will be its final season of any new content. You'll still be able to play it offline, but you will need to log in during season 5 and download a final update so everything offline still works properly. All of the Battle Pass stuff will be free during season 5, but man, it just feels really bad. Think about how popular Smash Bros. Is with when you think about it, a bunch of niche characters, people like Steve, Simon Belmont, where if you're not somebody that plays a bunch of video games, you have no idea who those characters are in a lot of cases. As opposed to now, Warner Brothers has Superman, Batman, characters everybody knows, and still was somehow unable to make this work. If they can't, you are starting to wonder who other than Nintendo can make one of these projects work.
Man, this kind of comes back to what I've been saying as far as like people are drawn to the legacy products. If you're going to start playing one, you go to one that you already know there's history of, that people are making videos about, that your friends talk about or whatever. We see it in card games all the time, right? these new card games pop up and they struggle to really get an audience because everybody goes back to playing Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, right? Like, I mean, like that's kind of the thing it's been for at least 20 of those 30 years or whatever now. And I think we're kind of in the same point with video
Well,
games.
here we had great numbers at the beginning, but the monetization is what chased people off. It really feels like they just that's the
Mm,
thing about free to play is you're going to take a risk. If you
yeah.
just make a game and charge $60 for it, you know you've got that guaranteed money up front. If you do free to play, you are just betting that people are going to give you millions of dollars for new skins and new cosmetics and other things. And in this case, none of that happened. Because I'm telling you, I've been playing season 5 to see what it's going to turn out like. Been writing stories about it. I never have to wait more than a minute to find a match. People are playing the game, but I guess in Warner Bros. Opinion, they are not spending enough money.
But okay, then that's the other argument, right? That we talked about earlier in the show is some of these studios, the expectations are too high. Right? If you say to me there's that many people playing, hell, I can get on League of Legends or not League of Legends, but Teamfight Tactics, and sometimes I still have to wait 2, 3, 4 minutes for a game to load up.
Right?
If you're able to get in a game in a minute, like or less, you have a lot of people, right? So I can't imagine none of those people are buying skins or whatever. So my guess is and again, we're talking about Warner Brothers, who
Yeah.
have killed many, many projects in the last 3 years. Maybe they just have the goal set too high. Maybe they were okay. We're
Oh,
gonna do this thing, and it's got to make $500 million, and it only made 200 million or
and
whatever.
also, keeping in mind, Warner Brothers owns so many things. The only place I ever saw advertising was like on YouTube or in video game channels. I never saw an ad for this on HBO. I never saw any ads for Multiversus on any of Warner Brothers' other numerous TV shows. There was a Superman show on at one point that I never saw a Multiversus ad in. Like, what is the purpose of owning this big media empire if you're not going to cross promote things?
If anybody from Warner Brothers is listening, and you need a PR person, like no, but seriously, like how easy would it have been? Like legitly, you get like I don't know, let's say Christian Bale or one of like the well-known Batman, right? And you get one of the well-known Superman, and you have them do just a random commercial about I can whoop your ass, I can whoop your whatever. And then they hop into a game and you see them playing Multiverses or whatever, right? And just run that as like a commercial during a Sunday football game or whatever. That's all you had to do, right? Like that would have been like people are like, what's he doing on here? And like in the Batman suit, and what's he doing on here in like Superman suit? And then you see him playing a game like, oh, you can play a game where you can battle them against each other. Like that's it. Hell, maybe even halfway through the commercial, I don't know, like Wonder Woman jumps in and grabs a controller
Right?
or whatever, and I don't know, one of the aliens from Space Jam jumps in and grabs things. So now all four of them
Yeah.
are playing, or whatever it is, right? It
Or
would have been,
Jason Voorhees, because they were putting
yeah,
everybody in here.
that's what I'm saying. It would have been super easy. It would have made a nice visual. You could have sold the game, but
That's
I
what's sad.
genuinely
Is this
don't remember seeing. You're right. I don't remember seeing an ad at all. I mean, for
this
this
is what
game.
is sad. It's going to go away, and there will be millions of people that never knew you could play a game where LeBron James could beat up Jason Voorhees, and that's a tragedy to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. You at least saw an ad. I for real don't think I ever saw. I don't even think I saw like a banner ad on a nerd site for
No,
real.
fine.
Except for like when we talked about it, and you're the first
Yeah,
one who told me about it, a year or two ago,
great,
and that's the only reason I knew. And then I saw somebody else mention it on a video, and that's it. Otherwise I wouldn't even have known about the game, which is crazy.
great.
So yeah, that is a sad one to see go because it seems
It
completely
feels like it
unnecessary.
absolutely could have been prevented. It just,
Oh,
as we talked
100%
about.
could have.
Oh, and by the way, somebody published some anonymous stuff saying that a bunch of characters are completed and will never get to play them. It's completely unverified, but the internet never waits for verification. And they're sending death threats to the game director. Dequan, you have some experience in this idiot sending death threats era.
But, like,
Come on, y'all. It's just
okay, let me say this. If there were ever a thing to send a death threat for, like somebody completing work that hasn't seen the light of day, that didn't even make sense for a death threat.
We never got Scooby Doo. I want you to die.
You know what I'm saying? Like
You are grown. I'm gonna go ahead and
like
be
this that literally that doesn't affect you financially. That doesn't
right.
change the other things you like. It doesn't harm the product you enjoy. It literally does nothing other than you just don't get the existence of that thing. And you want to like, come on. Like
It
that's out of control.
it also blows my mind that people acknowledge all these mistakes in terms of the advertising and the monetization were made. But if we'd have gotten Daffy Duck, all of this would have turned around.
Yeah. Like,
No,
come on.
that's never.
Honestly,
And
it sounds to me like I think we hit it on the head. Promotion's not great. And even though you have a lot of people playing it, the goals are probably just too high for the studio for the type of game that it is. But all right, I want to still talking about cost here. I do want to talk about the tariffs a little bit, and I'm not going to get political because everybody feels how they do whatever about tariffs. But this is about how it affects gamers because this is a real thing. Multiple places, even the people in charge of shipping a lot of stuff are saying, "Hey, this is going to affect people over the next couple of years, especially for things coming out of China, right? Because a lot of technology is built there, a lot of board game products are manufactured there, so it doesn't matter if you're playing analog or electronic games." This is going to affect you on some level. You may not even directly see it, but if your games are $4 or $5 more, or you can't get certain things on time because you got to have more parts built or whatever.
Switch 2 is dropping this year. That may be the first time where we really realize how bad this has gotten.
Yep. And I don't think people realize sometimes you have parts that are made there that are shipped in and then
Yeah.
finished off in a factory, right? That's a thing that happens. I've asked the question too, for Wizards, like, or making sure you're not printing anything in that region or whatever, because like you don't know where. Hell, I just saw a thing that we may have tariffs even with like the UK or in Europe, right? We know Wizards has a factory in Belgium,
Yeah.
so it's like that may affect things whether we like it or not. Now, admittedly, they also have a factory in the US. They have one in Japan. I think they've got a fourth one somewhere else. Like, but whatever games you play, tariffs are going to start becoming part of the conversation. Now,
Yeah.
you may not as a consumer go pick up a thing and it's not going to say this is $5 more because there's a tariff on it or whatever, but you may see prices go up. You might see availability of some things become a problem. Like this, it may not be immediate. You might not notice till August, September, October, once you get through the later products having to be produced or whatever, but it is going to be a thing. Some things you probably go on Kickstarter and get might start
Mm.
out at a higher price, right? Because a lot of those get by because they plan to print them cheaply in China, right? That might not be a thing. Or they're going to have a 10 or 20% cost tacked onto them than they have. So something to just be aware of. Like if you don't know how that works, I will
Yeah.
say it clearly one time for people who don't understand it, and we're going to leave it. The tariffs are not paid in the country of origin. They are paid in the country of the receiver. That is how it works all
Yeah.
around the world. I
And
promise you 100%.
and my thing again, not telling you who, because we don't have an election upcoming, not telling you who to vote for. I'm just saying whether you get involved in politics or not, politics is going to get involved with you.
Yep. That's a good quote because that's for real. That's one of these. That's what that is. All right, let's knock out a couple of topics before we wrap this up. I just realized we use that sound drop, but that really is an old head sound drop.
It is. It is.
Because like I just realized there's probably somebody who's like 20 who's listening to our show and goes like, why what do you make that sound for? What does that mean? Or they just think it's like a knowledge bomb sound for us. It's like, no, man, that used to be on every Saturday on TV show. Like G.I. Joe would show us some, that was the whole thing.
We're going to get to a point where we'll have to explain to kids what Saturday morning cartoons were.
We
My
already
kids
do.
were.
That's barely not even a thing anymore.
Oh, it's not
Yeah.
officially. No. I think Cartoon Network still shows stuff on Saturday morning, but they
Yeah,
show
yeah.
stuff all the time. The networks don't do it anymore.
No. Which is crazy that we hit that era. But we also know Saturday morning cartoons were just commercials for selling us stuff. So like now, if you don't need
Exactly.
them for that, they're not
Yeah.
spending money on them.
Also, kids don't need to wait till Saturday morning to watch whatever they want to watch. That was the
Also true.
thing. We had no choice. If we wanted to see the Flintstones, we had to wait till Saturday, or maybe or weekday afternoons. That was it.
Yep.
Now you can just push a button, watch Flintstones or whatever your favorite cartoon is anytime.
Well, now that we've dated ourselves, they do have an MTG regional championship coming up in Portland this weekend. So if you're in the area, go check it out. There's going to be a lot in the area. They're basically Star City just has SCG Con now, literally, where
Yeah.
there's I think Star Wars, Flesh and Blood, Lorcana, Magic, a bunch of artists, cosplayers, whatever. So go check it out. It'll be fun. And if not then, Chicago's coming up. So you have MagicCon Chicago in 3 weeks. That's at the end of the month. So we've hit that stretch. There's about to be a lot of Magic
Yeah.
stuff coming down the pipe. A lot of just conventions as a whole are starting to fire back up. But I think I want to touch on here just a quick bit of sad news. I was looking up some stuff on Bioware and came across the fact that Bioware has less than 100 employees working now under contract, which is crazy
Yeah.
because 2 years ago they had over 200. So in a sometime around a year plus, they lost more than 50% of their actual employee base. That's
Who owns
crazy.
this? Remind me, who owns that studio again?
Oh, wait. That's some more EA stuff, ain't
Right.
it?
And they're
Again,
gonna and lo and behold, the last I haven't played it yet. For everything I've heard, the last Dragon Age was not hitting.
people hated it.
Supposedly the reason EA thinks it didn't hit was it didn't have enough live service.
Yeah, but everything I've seen about it, people were not. Matter of fact, I believe one of the people that worked on it got recently hired by one of Wizards' other studios. We talked about it a while back. I
Yeah.
had those. It was one of those that's working on video games, and people were mad. Like when they saw the announcement, like, isn't this one of the people who was in charge of the stuff over on Dragon?
Oh
Like,
God.
that's how mad people were about it. So, yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Here's a fun thing though. We had a Magic card go up almost 2,000% this past week, which is crazy to say. Now, admittedly, this is why when you hear a number say 2,000%, oh my god, like the card went from being like 45 cents to like a little over $10, right? So
If you had enough of them, though, that's still an
oh yeah.
insane profit. If you had a couple of hundred of those, you're real happy right now.
But for those of you who don't know, Varina Lich Queen, I believe, came out of what was it, Modern Masters, like 2018 or something, whatever that was. One of those sets from 2018 that hit. And it only went up because a card came out in the upcoming set in Aetherdrift in the Commander's product that makes it really, really good. And they need each other. And this is the type of thing I tell people you can't even speculate on this stuff generally because there's no way to know, right? Like, unless you're inside the walls at Wizards and know this card's going to be printed, like, there's no way to know this. I mean, you went from under 50 cents to being worth $11. Like, that's crazy to happen overnight, basically. But hey, if you got some, you've got a little bit of found money. You might want to go dig through your boxes a little bit because I'm sitting here checking it out and like, yeah, it's still holding. It's not like it dropped off. And again, it's probably gonna hold its price for a minute because people got to go find them to go sell them to vendors and everything else. They don't
Right?
technically exist anywhere right now unless you are a vendor that just happens to have a lot of them, I guess. Because this isn't a thing that people were just playing or holding on to. And it's a 3-color card, which tends to not be a thing that too many people hold on to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a cool idea, though, to talk about. It's just like, hey, these things pop up, and I don't think people even know their things sometimes. So sometimes we're just giving you a little bit of advice, a little thing. Maybe if you have one, go dig through your stuff. You might make a little bit of money, especially if you have like a foil one or something. But yeah, this came out of the Commander 2018 product. I had that wrong. So out of Commander 2018. So it's even more limited because you had to have bought the Commander product to get your hands
Right.
on one. So yeah, pretty interesting how that stuff happens. But all right, Brian, let's wrap this up and talk about things in the dinner table here. And this is a fun one, a good speculative question, because again, I don't know what your answer is going to be here. But if you could bring back one product or game or idea or whatever, nerd or geek related, what would it be?
I'm gonna do Raw Deal and make the 10 people left that still remember that game. Although Daquan is one of those 10 people. Make
Hey, I
all
worked
those
on that
people
game.
exactly. So
Yeah, for you
Daquan's
know,
ready if y'all want to do it.
exactly. WB Raw Deal was a cool game. It was, as the name implies, it was a wrestling based card game, but it was one that used all the superstars, had all the special moves, had title belts for prizes for tournaments. Like it did everything you wanted a wrestling game to do, which was pretty
Yep.
cool. So that's
Chess with chair shots is how I heard it referred to a
yep.
couple of times.
So credit where it's due, man. That's a good call out. For me, this is a very niche one, and most people may never even have experienced this.
More niche than Raw Deal.
Oh yeah. Like I wanted games to make use of that little mini controller you had inside the Dreamcast controller.
The virtual memory unit thing.
Yeah, that was such a cool
It
concept.
was, and it really didn't. It didn't ever get to.
Yeah, and it was utilized like if you were playing a basketball game, for example, like your stats would pop up when you made a basket
Yep.
of like the player and the little thing,
There's a
or
little Tamagotchi that one of the games
yeah,
had. I forget which game.
or if you were playing like an RPG, you could take it with you and play like the mini game or whatever. And when you
Yep.
came back and plugged in, you got like extra gold and stuff or whatever. I was just like, man, why don't more games have this? Right? Because I never knew that was a feature of the Dreamcast till I borrowed one from a friend because I wanted
Right.
to play one of the games. And then I was like, what's this in the controller? And I was like, oh crap, it's a little mini controller. Like, this is cool. Like, I never even knew it was a feature till like 2 years after they weren't making Dreamcasts anymore.
Yep.
And I was like, man, and I guess the closest thing you can have now, I guess, is like the Switch, but you just take the whole Switch with you, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was such a cool mechanic that we never saw again on a game system, and I don't even know why, honestly.
Maybe because the Dreamcast didn't do so well. I guess is probably
Maybe
why we never saw it again. But
I
that
feel
was,
like Sega was first to the post on so many things,
yeah.
and just they were first one with like a good CD system, and whatever. Hell, at one point you were making a Voltron of like putting parts on your Sega so you could play the Sega 3D and the Sega
Right.
CD and all that stuff. But like, yeah, they hit it so many. Hell, matter of fact, I remember the first time I saw a game that Sega had was just on a chip. It wasn't even like the whole cartridge. And I remember them you'd be able to stick it in the front of the later Sega units. And that was wild to me. I'm like, you could put a whole game on just this? Not realizing that's really what was inside the cartridge. They just found a way to structure it differently.
People are, after, uh, everything old becomes new again. And I mean, people are, because we're seeing Sonic the Hedgehog movies
Yep.
come out and be huge hits now. Even if you didn't think your childhood was affected by Sega, it probably was. Because I remember my wife was playing I Got Five on it, which has one of the all-time
Oh, yep.
great bars of "Fools all kick in like Shinobi," which is a
Yep.
Sega game.
So yeah, man, that would be mine. I think it would be cool to see that. There's some cool stuff. Even now, the technology is probably much cheaper than it was then to do it if somebody wanted to. But I also think we're in a world where you just don't have to because everybody has phones in their pockets and stuff now. So you could always
Yeah.
connect on services that way. But all right, dude. Now that we've had this crazy show of news that we got to talk about, why don't you everybody they can find you when you're not recording the show?
All right. I am at App Trigger. You can read all my writing over there, and you can follow App Trigger on the Facebook, as the old folk like to say. The
Yeah,
Facebook.
almost these days it is, old folks. Like, and you can find me everywhere at PowrDragn, PowrDragn. And honestly, if you want to do anything with Aetherdrift, we're gonna have a bunch of stuff coming out. We're starting to add some new content as well as hot takes and other stuff. So if you want to be part of that, follow me over on all the socials and YouTube. With all that being said, as always, wherever you are watching or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please remember to take care of yourselves and your family because the world is crazy right now. Remember to be awesome and genuinely, most importantly, be awesome to each other.